China has officially hit back in Donald Trump's trade war by halting orders of Boeing planes. We go live now to our U.S. correspondent Jonathan Kersley, reporting from Los Angeles. Jonathan, good morning. Has the president responded yet? It started quietly, with a low-key meeting in Brussels, a note from Beijing, and a phone call between trade officials in Washington and Geneva. But now it's loud and clear. $100 billion worth of American exports are under fire, and right at the top of that list is Boeing. Yes, the same Boeing that once stood as a symbol of U.S. industrial power, the company that built aircraft used by presidents, pilgrims, and global cargo fleets. That Boeing now finds itself staring down a potential economic disaster, being squeezed by China, Europe, and even the U.S. government itself. This is no longer just a trade disagreement. This is a full-blown global retaliation, and Boeing is stuck in the middle. As of May 11th, the European Union rolled out a draft plan to strike back against U.S. tariffs. At the heart of the EU's proposed measures? A direct blow to Boeing, over 10 billion euros in penalties directly targeting America's top aerospace company. And this may only be the beginning. We had a great meeting between partners and allies, one EU official said, and it began with a major breakthrough on aircraft. The new agreement is a turning point in our relationship. What's unfolding now is a coordinated tariff campaign targeting the United States aviation sector. And if Boeing ends up collapsing under the pressure, the fallout could hit the entire global supply chain, from American engine producers to European airlines to Chinese raw material suppliers. Before we go on, hit that like button to help us fight the YouTube algorithm and support our channel. Now, let's begin with Europe. Overnight, the European Commission completed a list of retaliatory tariffs in response to United States duties on steel and autos. Boeing aircraft are now facing serious penalties if they're sold into the European Union. According to internal EU reports, the tariff list includes up to 100 billion euros worth of American products, with over 10 billion euros specifically tied to aircraft-related imports. So why target Boeing? Because Europe sees a strategic opening. Boeing is already hurting from the U.S. China trade war. Its sales are down, share prices are unstable, and delivery schedules are slipping. By hitting Boeing with new tariffs, Europe can strike at the core of U.S. exports and give a boost to Airbus, its European competitor. The message is direct. If Washington is going to weaponize trade, Brussels will weaponize aviation. And that plan is already making waves. Ryanair, one of Europe's biggest budget airlines, has openly warned it may cancel its $30 billion Boeing deal if tariffs drive prices up. Michael O'Leary, Ryanair's CEO, said that their fleet expansion depends on stable pricing, and if Boeing gets more expensive, they'll look to other manufacturers like Airbus or even China's COMEC program. This is a massive deal. A $30 billion contract for 330 aircraft is now hanging by a thread because of trade politics. And Ryanair isn't the only one. Other major European airlines are also quietly signaling that if Boeing becomes costlier, they'll shift to Airbus or other suppliers. For Boeing, already behind on deliveries and struggling with production issues, this could mean billions in lost revenue and further damage to its international reputation. But the pain doesn't stop in Europe. Across the world in Beijing, China has launched its own counterattack, not just on Boeing, but on the entire American aerospace industry. In April, China slapped a massive 125% tariff on all imports from the United States. We begin with breaking news. China has officially raised tariffs on American goods from 84% to 125%, starting this Saturday. This new policy effectively blocks all upcoming Boeing deliveries to China. As the tariff-driven trade war heats up, China has now returned freshly built Boeing 737 MAX jets, signaling just how serious the economic conflict with the United States has become. One of the aircraft, reportedly headed for Xiamen Airlines, was flown back to Boeing's production center in Seattle on Sunday. Things took a darker turn when China's Commerce Ministry followed up with a serious announcement. They're placing new export restrictions on rare earth elements, which are vital to building jet engines. Tonight, President Trump announced a national security investigation that could lead to new tariffs on critical minerals, most of which are processed almost entirely by China. And we're not talking about random materials here. These are the essential metals, magnets, and alloys that power everything from turbines and radar systems to avionics. They are the very core of flight tech. And right now, China controls over 90% of the global supply. By cutting off access to these materials, China isn't just reacting. It's sending a direct threat to the heart of America's industrial strength. And now, Boeing is stuck figuring out how to build top-tier aircraft without the very components that keep them airborne. Industry experts are already ringing alarm bells. One aerospace exec said some of these materials come exclusively from China. There is no backup source. If China doesn't lift the ban, U.S. aircraft manufacturing could come to a halt, not in years, but within months. And that's not even the end of it. The U.S. government is now exploring even more tariffs, this time on imported aircraft parts. The White House just opened a formal Section 232 investigation to examine whether importing foreign airplane components is a national security risk. This could mean new taxes on key parts, including Rolls-Royce engines, which Boeing uses in many of its planes. In effect, the U.S. would be hitting its own companies with higher costs, just as they're struggling to stay competitive worldwide. Even Boeing's top suppliers are worried. Firms like RTX, GE Aerospace, and Honeywell have warned that tariffs on aircraft components could cost them hundreds of millions this year. RTX alone projects a loss of over $850 million in tariff-related expenses by the end of 2025. The whole supply chain is teetering on the edge, and the global market is paying close attention. Before we go on, hit the subscribe button to support the channel. Now, amid all the chaos, there's one silver lining. The United States and the United Kingdom have signed a new economic prosperity agreement that includes a tariff exemption for aerospace goods. Under the deal, Rolls-Royce engines and other British-made aircraft components can enter the United States without any import taxes. This is a huge win for Boeing, which depends heavily on British suppliers. The agreement maintains key terms of the 1979 WTO Civil Aircraft Trade Agreement, which had shielded the aerospace industry from tariffs for over 40 years. But there's a catch. Only the United Kingdom is part of the deal. Europe isn't. That means parts from France, Germany, and other Airbus-connected countries could still be hit with massive import duties. This not only increases tension among transatlantic allies, but also adds more uncertainty to the already fragile world of global aircraft trade. And yet, despite all this, some lawmakers in Washington are calling for even more tariffs, not less. They argue that foreign plane makers have unfair advantages through hidden subsidies, and the United States must strike back to even the playing field. Others, especially those aligned with former President Trump, see Boeing's current crisis as just another battle in a much bigger geopolitical war. One they believe America must win, no matter the cost. The tone has completely shifted. Top executives from both Boeing and Airbus are now openly pushing for a return to tariff-free trade in the aerospace industry. In a related update, Airbus's CEO has publicly called for lifting tariffs in aerospace, joining a growing list of U.S. industry leaders who are demanding an end to the escalating trade conflict. They all agree on one thing. This economic battle is damaging everyone. It's cutting jobs, increasing prices, and putting global cooperation in aviation at serious risk. Here's something most people outside the aviation world don't realize. A typical Boeing aircraft isn't built in just one place. It's assembled from parts sourced around the world. Wings from Japan, engines from the United Kingdom, fasteners from France, avionics from Canada, and final assembly in the United States. This entire setup only works when trade is open and unrestricted. If trade stalls, planes don't get built. If planes don't get built, the entire aviation system begins to collapse. It's not just Boeing that suffers, it's thousands of suppliers, airports, engineers, mechanics, and pilots worldwide. That's what makes today's situation so dangerous. This isn't just a trade dispute anymore. It's tearing apart the very foundation of how modern aviation works. The United States once had a $75 billion trade surplus in aerospace. That's now shrinking fast. Millions of jobs tied to aircraft exports are suddenly uncertain, and America's image as a trustworthy trade partner in aviation is crumbling. So what comes next? The European Union has given the United States 90 days to roll back its tariffs. If that doesn't happen, expect heavy tariffs on Boeing planes entering Europe by August. China, meanwhile, isn't backing down either. It's keeping its mineral export restrictions, its airlines are canceling Boeing orders, and state media in China now labels Boeing as non-viable under the current trade rules. Back in the United States, the Section 232 investigation may lead to new protectionist policies, raising Boeing's manufacturing costs domestically while making it even harder to compete internationally. If a deal isn't reached soon, and world leaders don't step away from the edge, The trade fight that started with cars and steel might ultimately bring the global aviation business to a halt. What started as political pressure is fast turning into a full-scale industry breakdown. And Boeing, the world's largest airplane manufacturer, is now battling just to stay alive. Yes, Boeing has been through storms before, from the MAX crashes to the COVID-19 crisis to countless reports of dysfunction. But this time, it's different. This isn't a scandal or a crash or a design flaw. This is something much bigger, a system-wide crisis that no amount of flying skills can navigate out of.